Hi, and welcome to the Chapter 2 intro video overview. This video and slideshow is meant to be an overview of the chapter we're studying this week. Very important, this is not meant to stand in for the reading. You still got to do the readings. Just meant to give you an overview of some of the topics we're going to cover and some additional information. So watch these, do the readings. Also look at the PowerPoints I've added to week 1. There are 2 PowerPoints, one you'll see here, then a second one called Chapter 2 PP2, PowerPoint 2. That one is much longer and includes notes that I put in there. So I strongly recommend you take a look at that because it has notes based on some of the slides and the materials from the class. All right, so first, an overview. We are starting here in 1607 with the earliest start at English colonization of North America. In the areas, what we're going to be looking at here, Chesapeake and the New England areas. These are the 2 of them. So Chesapeake, today Virginia and Maryland, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and other New England colonies here. So back to the overview, though. England before colonization was, like many countries, dealing with internal strife. You had internal division, political division, civil war, religious change in England, fights over who was going to rule. You have the creation of a new church in England, the Anglican Church under Henry VIII, which led to fights with the Catholics and others in England. So before England went on to become a power, we start here with its internal fighting. England would go on to be arguably one of the, if not the most powerful empires ever. They used to say at the height of the English Empire in the 19th century that the sun never set on the English Empire. And that was actually a true statement. Think about that. England owned so much territory around the globe that at any minute of any day, the sun was shining somewhere. But before to get to that, again, England was internal problems before they get into colonization. Once they do get their issues under control, and you read about that in the beginning of the chapter, they go on to their colonization. So very important here, talking about colonization. For the English of the 17th century, they didn't necessarily use the word colonization. Instead, they used the word plantation. What they meant was not plantation like we use today with a large-scale farming and all that. Instead, originally, the English talked about planting their civilization, their society in a new land. So, plantation meant you were literally taking your civilization and planting it in a new world, a new land. Indeed, Plymouth, the original colonies in Massachusetts, Plymouth Plantation, not that they grew anything, not that's what it was based around, but instead that was the plantation of English colonists. Indeed, Springfield, Massachusetts was originally known as Agawam Plantation, a planting of English colonists in western Massachusetts. So, but before the English got to America, they first began their colonization in Ireland, the subjugation of Ireland. The English viewed the Irish, who were Catholics, as inferior, and the English actually used Ireland to perfect their colonization methods. Many of the methods they used against the Irish that were successful, they used here in America against the Native Americans and others. It's actually quite common for countries to practice first before they go abroad. Practice in a sense of they build their model. The Spanish did it in driving Muslims out of Muslim conquerors out of Spain in 1492, called the Reconquista. They then went on to Canary Islands and used those tactics later in Central and South America. So again, that is what we're talking about when we talk about colonization. So, what led to English colonization? Well, 3 main goals of the English coming over here. One was the spread of Protestantism. Again, the English were never as interested as, say, the Spanish in spreading religion, but it did play at least a minor role in their goals. However, arguably the most important goal they had was getting land, and this was connected to the English social crisis, which you'll read about. In short, England had an excess population, what they called masterless men, homeless. They had lost their farms to enclosure movements and others. And England viewed the Americas as a sort of a safety valve for this excess population. So the English were most interested in coming in and getting land in the New World. That meant the English wanted to displace the indigenous population and plant their own colonies here. Connected to all this, their third major goal was national power. The English were rivals with other powers in Europe, such as the Spanish, the Dutch, and the French. All of them looked at it as you needed to get land in the Americas and anywhere to become more powerful, more trade opportunities, more control over people, and so this is one of their goals as well, as national power. So again, here we have the maps of Chesapeake Bay colonies, Virginia, Maryland, and the New England colonies. So, but before we get to those, just a little bit background. England had tried colonization before in the Americas, and they had failed. John Cabot had made it to the North America in about late 15th century, about 1497, 1498. The English had tried other colonies down here at Roanoke, the famous, infamous lost colony of Roanoke. Indeed, it's still a mystery today why the only thing left of the colonists is that word carved into the tree, Croatan. Nobody knows what it means, despite many, many attempts and centuries of figuring out. But that is all is lost of the left of the lost colony. If you're into those things, you can go down a whole rabbit hole trying to find out about Roanoke on YouTube. So that's up to you if you want to do that. But nonetheless, the English did try. The point here is they had tried before and had failed. Why? It was difficult coming to the Americas. Life was difficult here. Indeed, many of the earliest colonists will die, sometimes over half the population. As you'll read about, you'll see that. Another thing about the colonization here, it was, again, as I mentioned before, about national power. And here, and you have this as a primary source too, is Richard Hakluyt's Discourse Concerning Western Planting. Again, reminder, plantation equals colony. The argument that the English needed to start planting colonists in Virginia as a way to increase English power. And this is one of the things that spurred the English on to plant here in America, plant their colonies. One important thing as we get into the colonies here, and before we get into indentured servants, is about how these colonies were formed. It's very important. These, both the colonies of New England and of Chesapeake, they started off either as corporations or private land grants to individuals. Indeed, Virginia, the Jamestown colony was originally run by the Virginia Company. You had the Massachusetts Bay Company. They started out as private corporations and later grew into colonies and then later into the democracy type of states, republics we have today. So that's just an overview of those. So again, Hakluyt argues here, once again, they need to start planting their culture in the Americas in order to grow their power. A note on people coming to the Americas, the original colonists. Most came over as something called an indentured servant, and here we have an advertisement for indentured servants to go to Maryland. An indentured servant was a common practice. So again, over half of the people did this that first came to the colonies. What you did was you sold yourself to somebody for 7 years. You signed a contract. You were going to work for them for 7 years. They, in turn, would give you passage over to the New World and food and shelter here. This is different than slavery. It's not slavery. Slavery is involuntary, lasts for life, often passed on to children. Indentures did this. It was a contract you signed. You agreed to do it. Now, this is a tough life. You only did this if you're really poor and you couldn't afford your work way over here, which was true of many people back then. And, in practice, you were supposed to get out after 7 years, become free, get a piece of land. Didn't always work out that way, but that was the way it was intended to work. So, again, to the Chesapeake. Overview of the Chesapeake, its economics, a tobacco colony, both Virginia and Maryland. And indeed, Virginia, Maryland here, all of this area on the map here, still you see a lot of tobacco farming in this region. Here's an advertisement for tobacco, early use of tobacco. and you have slaves and indentured servants processing it. This is very labor intensive. That is why you're going to see lots of indentured servitudes and slaves in this region. But we will get to that in later chapters. So the first successful colony in the Americas and in the Virginia Chesapeake area was Jamestown. Here you have a image of the original Jamestown settlement. As you see, it looks more like a fort than a settlement. It's not that large. And if you, again, you have this PowerPoint as a separate PowerPoint, so please read the captions and all that. Life here was difficult. Again, over half will die in the first winter. This is a typical early colonial home. Just to give you an idea about this, you may have seen these if you've been to Sturbridge or Plymouth or maybe even Jamestown in your travels. Here's just an image of same famous Jamestown folks here. We got Pocahontas on the left, John Smith top right, and John Rolfe bottom right. Yeah, as you'll read about them. There's websites. Rolfe and Pocahontas are actually the ones that get married, contrary to the Disney films. So you'll read about them, and it's just an image of what Pocahontas will eventually go back to England, and as you can see here, they dress her like a proper English person. But again, more of this in the book in the weekly readings. Maryland. Maryland's a little different. Maryland was set up as a private colony of John Calvert. Calvert set the colony up as a refuge for Catholics who were being persecuted in England. Calvert himself was a Catholic. Otherwise, it was a trading and tobacco colony like the others. Just one note here, this is just a engraving of early contact between the English and the Native Americans. We will talk about Native Americans more in this course as we go on. Just an important point here, they were instrumental in helping the colonists survive their first and harsh years in the Americas. Unfortunately, as we know, the story ends not always well for the natives. Many will die in clashes and others, but again, we will talk about that more later in the course. So on to New England. Here we see up here in New England. The New England colonists, in many ways, were some of the earliest. And here we have Plymouth Plantation, New England. This is a little sketch of it. Plymouth Rock. We have another early sketch of Plymouth Harbor from Samuel de Champlain, an early explorer of the Americas. The English coming over here to New England came over on the Mayflower, and they were the Puritans or Pilgrims. They were Puritans. Many of them are actually exiles from the Netherlands and other places who believed that Christianity, either Anglican Church, Catholicism, was being corrupted, and so they wanted a purer religion. As you see, Puritans. This is an early view of Plymouth Plantation here. Here are what folks would have looked like back then. These are recreations from the actual Plymouth Plantation. Again, Native Americans, these were the Pequot locals in New England. They had these round fortifications here. So the New Englanders, one thing about New England, a little different than other places, its economy. Not large-scale farming like you'll get in the Maryland, Chesapeake area. Why? The New England weather is not made for large-scale farming. If you're from here, you know why. The soil's rocky, winters are harsh, so it is tough to farm. This would become a merchant elite, traders, selling things, some timber, fish, but other goods, and you're going to see this lead to lots of problems within the religion. The other thing about New England here, closing this up, is there is a lot of discord in New England between different religious sects of the Puritans. So you'll have Roger Williams, Anne Hutchinson, John Winthrop, all pushing for different views of the Puritan and Protestant faith. And they will break off. Williams will set up Rhode Island colony. Later, Anne Hutchinson will get kicked out of there, help create colonies in Connecticut, and later Long Island, New York. And so that sort of brings us together, for our end of this overview of the chapter. Of course, check out the other PowerPoint. It has some more detail in terms of notes on some of these topics. And as always, as you're reading through this, you're watching this, you have any questions, want any clarifications, want me to go into detail about something more, please just email me and I'll be happy to do it. All right, folks, good luck on the readings this week. Again, as always, I know you'll do excellent. Let me know if you have any questions. Hope all is well.